My friend sabotaged my business. Now I'm a millionaire and she's bankrupt. Funny how life works out sometimes, isn't it? Pour yourself something strong because this story's gonna need it. 3 years ago, I was just another struggling entrepreneur with a dream and a rapidly depleting savings account. My little graphic design studio, just me, my laptop, and enough caffeine to kill a horse, was finally starting to gain traction. Small clients became medium clients. One-off projects turned into retainers. I wasn't exactly rolling in cash, but the ramen dinners were becoming less frequent. And through it all was Vanessa, my ride or die since college, the person who helped me move 4 times in 2 years. The shoulder I cried on when my dad got sick. The voice of reason when I dated that bassist with the suspicious rash. We were inseparable, or so I fucking thought. Here's the thing about success. It changes the way people look at you. Some people see inspiration. Some see opportunity. And some people, they see something that needs to be destroyed before it outshines them. I never saw Vanessa as the third type. My mistake. The first warning sign slipped right past me. A client mentioning they'd received a weird email about my financial troubles. I laughed it off. Must be a mix-up, I told them. My business was fine. Small, but fine. Then a major potential client ghosted me after our 3rd meeting. Strange, considering they'd practically promised me the contract over drinks the night before. Whatever. These things happen, right? But they kept happening. Projects falling through, emails going mysteriously unanswered, clients dropping with vague excuses about inconsistencies and concerns. My bank account dwindled, the caffeine doubled, the ramen made its triumphant return. And through it all, there was Vanessa, offering sympathy, advice, and those little pep talks that somehow always left me feeling worse. You know the type. I'm sure you'll figure it out eventually. Maybe this business thing isn't for everyone. At least you tried. I didn't connect the dots until that rainy Tuesday night. My laptop screen glowing in my dark apartment because I couldn't afford to waste electricity. Scrolling through my sent emails, looking for anything I might have done wrong, any reason for this sudden business collapse. That's when I noticed it. An email to my biggest client, except I hadn't sent it. The words swam before my eyes: unprofessional conduct, extending deadlines, considering other options. I apologize for the inconvenience. My stomach dropped to somewhere around my ankles. Someone had accessed my email. Someone had been writing to my clients, sabotaging relationships, destroying agreements. Someone with access to my passwords. Someone I trusted. Someone like my best fucking friend who just happened to start her own competing design studio 6 months ago. The realization didn't hit me like a truck. It was worse, like watching a horror movie in slow motion, seeing all the clues I'd missed. The casual questions about my client list, the times I'd left her alone with my laptop, her sudden interest in my business finances. My hands trembled as I dug deeper, found more. Emails to nearly all my clients, each one more damaging than the last. Fake apologies, invented excuses, hints of instability, all crafted to sound just enough like me to be believable. And the final blow, an email to my largest potential client, the one that would have set me up for years, containing work samples, my work samples, with Vanessa's logo slapped on them. The room spun. My chest felt like it was being crushed. 15 years of friendship, countless secrets shared, holidays spent with each other's families. All of it, what, just the long con? I called her. Of course I fucking called her. What tumbled out of my mouth wasn't even words at first, just raw, guttural sounds of betrayal. When actual language returned, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't clever. It was primal. Her response? Cool as ice. A professional backstabber through and through. I imagined I caught her off guard, she said. Business is business, she explained. We both knew there wasn't room for 2 small design studios in our niche, she reasoned. I should have been more careful with my passwords, she suggested. And really, wasn't this a valuable lesson for me? My vision actually went red. Not metaphorically, I literally saw everything through a crimson haze. The blood pounding in my ears drowned out whatever other bullshit justifications she was spewing. I hung up while she was mid-sentence, sat in my dark apartment, stared at the wall. 3 hours later, I was still staring, but something had changed. The pain was still there, a jagged hole where trust used to live. But around its edges, something else was crystallizing, something cold and sharp and dangerous. I wiped my face. Took a breath, opened a new document on my laptop, and I began to plan, because let me tell you something about betrayal. It clarifies things, strips away the non-essentials. When someone tries to destroy everything you've built, you discover what you're really made of. Turns out, I'm made of something a hell of a lot stronger than Vanessa anticipated. She thought she'd beaten me. Thought I'd crawl away, lick my wounds, maybe get some corporate job and occasionally mention that time I tried to start a business at happy hours. But that's the thing about underestimating people. It leaves you vulnerable. And Vanessa had just made herself very, very vulnerable. I looked at my bank account. $842.17. Enough for 1 month's rent, maybe less. I looked at my client list. Almost empty. And I smiled for the first time in weeks. Because Vanessa was about to learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. When you betray someone who knows all your secrets, flaws, and vulnerabilities. When you leave someone with nothing to lose. She thought she was destroying me. Instead, she created her worst nightmare. Game fucking on. I slept on my couch that night, laptop still open on the coffee table like a crime scene I couldn't bring myself to clean up. Woke up at 3:47 a.m. with my heart pounding and jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. My mind kept replaying memories of Vanessa, now tainted with this new knowledge. The time she insisted on setting up my more secure email system. The business books she recommended that always emphasized cutting out competition. The subtle way she'd question whether certain clients were really worth my time. Every memory reframed itself in my head, the friendship I thought we had dissolving frame by frame like old film melting in reverse. 15 years of my life suddenly felt like an elaborate con job. I managed to drag myself to the shower around dawn, stood underwater hot enough to turn my skin raw pink, like I could somehow scald away the betrayal. It didn't work. Here's the thing about having your livelihood stolen. It doesn't just hurt emotionally, it's also a practical fucking catastrophe. My rent was due in 3 weeks, my health insurance payment after that, and the sad, soggy remains of my business couldn't generate enough to cover either. I spent the morning sending desperate emails to former clients, trying to explain without sounding paranoid. Got exactly 2 responses. One confused, "Sorry, we've already hired someone else," and one concerned, "Maybe take some time for self-care," that might as well have said, "You sound unhinged." Thanks, Vanessa, for poisoning that well so thoroughly. I couldn't even rage eat my feelings because my grocery budget was now approximately $0. Instead, I rage drank the last of my coffee and rage scrolled through social media, which turned out to be another spectacular mistake. There she was on Instagram, posting about her expanding client roster and how blessed she felt for this organic growth in her business. The comments were a parade of congratulations. People I knew. People who had no idea what she'd done. I hurled my mug against the wall. It shattered spectacularly, adding property damage to my growing list of problems. Tiny ceramic shards embedded themselves in my carpet, a security deposit I'd never see again. Rock bottom has a way of introducing itself. I found myself sitting amid the wreckage, literally and figuratively, doing something I hadn't done since my dad's funeral. Ugly crying. The kind with snot and hiccups and sounds that wouldn't be out of place in a wildlife documentary. The kind you're grateful no one's around to witness. When it finally subsided, I felt empty, hollowed out. Like Vanessa had scooped out everything soft inside me and left just the hard edges. My phone buzzed with a text. My younger sister checking in. "How's business going? Still coming to Mom's birthday next month?" I stared at it, thumb hovering over the keyboard. The thought of explaining all this, of saying it out loud to someone who would rightfully be furious on my behalf, it was exhausting. And what would it accomplish? Another person feeling bad for me? Poor me. Betrayed me. Stupid, trusting me who got exactly what naivety deserves. I tossed the phone aside without answering. It landed next to yesterday's mail, still unopened. Bills, probably. Maybe some junk mail to really brighten the mood. I ripped open the envelopes with zero ceremony. Electric bill, credit card statement, and an invitation to the annual Small Business Association gala, the one where Vanessa would undoubtedly be showcasing her suddenly thriving design studio, the one I'd been excited about attending back when I had, an actual business. Something shifted inside me. A cold, clear feeling spreading through my chest. I picked up the invitation. 3 weeks away? Tickets $150 each. Money I absolutely did not have. But I needed to be there. Needed to see exactly what she'd built with my stolen clients, my stolen work, my stolen future. Needed to understand the complete picture before I could what? The question hung in the air. What exactly did I think I was going to do? What could I do? She had systematically dismantled everything I'd built. She had resources now. Clients, income, Probably a lawyer on retainer, knowing her paranoid ass. I had $842.17, a broken coffee mug, and an apartment that smelled like failure. But I also had something Vanessa didn't: intimate knowledge of how her mind worked. 15 years of friendship might have been a lie on her end, but I'd been paying genuine attention. I knew her insecurities, her shortcuts, her password patterns, always her childhood dog's name plus whatever year it was. Her tendency to cover her tracks poorly because she assumed no one was looking. And most importantly, I knew she thought she'd won. Victory makes people careless. Especially people like Vanessa, who'd been insecure underneath her bravado for as long as I'd known her. She wouldn't be watching her back. Wouldn't be expecting retaliation from someone she'd so thoroughly destroyed. I reached for my laptop, brushing away coffee mug shards. Not to beg for clients back. Not to send her another angry message that she'd screenshot and laugh about later. I created a new document. 3 headings. Assets, what I still have. Targets, what matters to her. Leverage, where she's vulnerable. Under assets, I wrote things that might seem small but weren't. My design skills. My portfolio, even if she'd stolen pieces of it. My knowledge of her business practices. My emergency credit card with a $5,000 limit I'd been saving for, well, emergencies. If this didn't qualify, what did? Under targets, I listed her reputation, her stolen client list, her insecurity about her actual design abilities, her need for industry recognition. And under leverage, this one made me smile for the first time in days, I wrote, the truth. Because here's the thing about lies. They require constant maintenance, constant vigilance. One small crack and the whole structure threatens to collapse. I just needed to find that crack. And then shove a fucking bulldozer through it. I picked up the gala invitation again. $150 I couldn't afford, but also the perfect place to begin. Sometimes rock bottom is just a launch pad in disguise. I reached for my phone and finally texted my sister back. Business is complicated right now. But don't worry, I'll have one hell of a story to tell at Mom's birthday. I meant it too, because Vanessa wasn't the only one who could play the long game, and mine was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up with purpose and a pounding headache. There's something clarifying about having your entire life torched to the ground. No more indecision about career paths or 5-year plans when your only goal becomes making sure the person who betrayed you regrets ever knowing your name. I made a pot of coffee strong enough to raise the dead and got to work. First order of business? Reconnaissance. Know thy enemy and all that Sun Tzu wisdom. I needed to understand exactly what Vanessa had built with my stolen life before I could dismantle it properly. I created a burner email account and subscribed to her company newsletter. Followed her business profiles on every social platform. Set up Google Alerts for her name and company. Basic stalking 101. Then I did something harder. I swallowed my pride and called Jacob, a former client who'd always been straight with me. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding wary. The conversation was enlightening. Turns out Vanessa had told him I was having personal issues that were affecting my work quality. Showed him emails where I supposedly admitted being overwhelmed and recommended her as a replacement. Emails I never fucking wrote. I managed to keep my voice steady as I thanked him for his honesty. Hung up. Screamed into a pillow for approximately 2 minutes. Then I made another call. And another. 5 former clients, 5 variations of the same story. Vanessa hadn't just stolen my clients. She'd created an entire narrative about my professional breakdown. In her version, she was the reluctant successor, nobly stepping in to save projects I was too unstable to complete. Nice touch, making herself the hero of my destruction. Really cinematic. By afternoon, I had a clear picture of what I was dealing with. Vanessa had successfully transferred 7 of my major clients to her business, representing about 85% of my former income. She'd hired 2 junior designers to handle the increased workload. She'd even moved into a stylish downtown office space, something I'd talked about doing when I could afford it. My life, my business plan, my future, all neatly repurposed for her benefit. I paced my apartment, rage building with each step. Fantasized about storming her new office, creating a scene worthy of reality TV. Imagined the satisfaction of exposing her in front of everyone. But that would just reinforce her unstable former friend narrative. She'd probably already warned people I might act out. Probably had security on speed dial. This required something more elegant, more devastating. I sat back down at my makeshift planning station, aka my kitchen table covered in coffee mugs and desperation. Looked at my 3 lists from yesterday. Added more details under each heading as a strategy began taking shape. Under Assets, I added the original files of all my design work with metadata timestamps proving creation dates, records of my client communications before she hijacked them, backups of my portfolio showing work she now claimed as hers. Under Targets, I expanded her cash flow, likely stretched thin with the new office and employees, her professional reputation, built on stolen work, her relationships with my former clients, founded on lies about me. Under Leverage, I wrote something that made me stop and stare at my own handwriting. She doesn't know I know about the Belmore campaign. The Belmore campaign. My design work for a major local real estate developer that had won a regional marketing award last year, my biggest professional achievement to date. The project Vanessa had conveniently never mentioned stealing. I checked her portfolio website. There it was, prominently featured. My designs, my concepts, my fucking award-winning work presented as hers. But here's the beautiful thing. The Belmore campaign had a phase 2 that never launched. The developer had shelved it due to budget constraints. Only 3 people knew the complete design concept: me, the developer's marketing director, who had since left the company, and Vanessa, who I'd excitedly shown the entire portfolio over celebratory drinks. I still had all the original files, the complete concept, the proof of creation. If Vanessa was claiming the Belmore campaign as her work, what would happen if Phase 2 suddenly appeared from the original creator? I felt that cold clarity spread through me again. Not rage now, something more focused. More dangerous. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to Belmore's new marketing team. Simple, professional, no hints of drama or revenge. Following up on the award-winning Phase 1 campaign, I wanted to present the complete vision for Phase 2, which I believe could significantly impact your current market position. Attached, a portfolio that definitively proved who had created the original work. I didn't send it yet. This was just the first thread I would pull, and I needed to be ready for what would unravel. Needed to ensure maximum damage. The gala was still my target date. 3 weeks to build a case so undeniable that even Vanessa's most convincing lies couldn't counter it. I opened my sad excuse for a banking app and transferred $150 from my emergency credit card to cover the gala ticket. Then another $500 for what I was mentally categorizing as strategic investments. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice, reclaiming what was mine, ensuring that lies didn't pay. At least that's what I told myself as I systematically planned someone's professional destruction. The moral gymnastics were impressive even to me. I considered calling my sister, telling her what was happening, seeking validation that I wasn't becoming a villain in my own story. But what would I say? Hey, remember my best friend? I'm currently plotting to ruin her life. Pass the potatoes? Instead, I texted a simple, "Working on a big new project, might be radio silent for a bit." She replied immediately, "Can't wait to hear about it." Love you. She would hear about it all right. Everyone would. I took a break around sunset, realized I hadn't eaten all day, scrounged up some ancient pasta from the cabinet and made the saddest dinner known to humankind. Sat by my window watching people coming home from their normal jobs, living their normal lives where best friends didn't commit identity theft and career homicide. For one flickering moment, I questioned what I was doing. Was this elaborate revenge plan just another way of avoiding reality? Should I be job hunting instead? Moving to a cheaper apartment? Accepting defeat? The moment passed when my phone pinged with an Instagram notification. Vanessa posting a behind-the-scenes look at her fancy new office, captioned, "Building something authentic takes courage and vision. So grateful for this journey." Authentic. The fucking audacity. I returned to my laptop with renewed purpose, opening a new document titled Phase 1. Then I did something that surprised even me. I started laughing. Not the healthy kind, mind you. The kind that would make nearby strangers change seats on the subway. Because I'd just realized the perfect first move. The one that would give me access to everything while making Vanessa believe her plan was still working perfectly. I was going to apply for a job at her company. Not as myself, obviously. I wasn't that far gone. But her job posting for a junior designer specifically mentioned remote work possible for the right candidate, a portfolio of decent but not threatening work, a resume with verifiable but unremarkable experience, a candidate just desperate enough to accept slightly below market pay, someone who would never meet the team in person due to family care responsibilities, someone who could gain access to her client files, internal communications, and company processes. I worked through the night creating my alter ego. By morning, Jessica Chen, with her solid but not exceptional portfolio, her touching personal statement about designing while caring for an ailing parent, and her eagerness to join a visionary creative team, was ready to submit her application. As I hit send, I felt a strange sense of calm. The opening move had been made. The board was set. Your turn, Vanessa. 3 days later, Jessica Chen had an interview. Virtual, of course, because of her immunocompromised parent. I spent hours perfecting my disguise. Plain black wig from Amazon, subtle makeup changes, glasses I didn't need, practiced speaking in a slightly higher pitch. Created an entire fictional background complete with a portfolio just good enough to get hired, but not good enough to threaten Vanessa's ego. The interview was almost too easy. Vanessa spent most of it talking about herself and her visionary approach to design, which apparently meant stealing other people's work and passing it off as her own. Jessica nodded appreciatively, asked appropriately impressed questions, and projected exactly the right amount of desperate but competent energy. 2 hours later, Jessica Chen was officially the newest remote junior designer at Vanessa's company, starting immediately. With access to the company servers, sometimes I surprised even myself. I created a strict schedule. Jessica would work during normal business hours, attending virtual meetings and completing assigned tasks. Meanwhile, the real me would work nights, piecing together evidence and building my case. Sleep became optional. Food became functional. My apartment transformed into an intelligence operations center, walls covered with notes and timelines. If any neighbors had seen inside, they'd have called for a wellness check or assumed I was hunting a serial killer. In a way, I guess I was. Jessica's first week was illuminating. Vanessa's business was growing faster than I'd realized. New clients, bigger projects, industry attention, all built on my stolen foundation, expanding in ways I'd only dreamed about. Each discovery was like swallowing broken glass. This should have been my success, my growth, my future. But Jessica was performing beautifully, earning Vanessa's distracted approval and gradually gaining more access. Each night, I carefully documented everything: client communications, internal messages, financial records. The picture that emerged was both infuriating and useful. Vanessa was overextended. The new office, the staff, the aggressive growth. She was burning through capital faster than revenue was coming in. Success was costing her, and she was cutting corners to maintain appearances. One of those corners? Actually delivering original work. I discovered that for 3 clients, including the Belmore account, she was recycling and slightly modifying my original designs rather than creating new concepts, charging premium rates for warmed-over versions of work she'd stolen from me. The Belmore connection was particularly damning. She'd recently pitched them an innovative new campaign direction that was literally phase 2 of my original concept, with the colors inverted and some text changed. I documented everything, creating before and after comparisons with timestamps and metadata that proved original creation, built a folder of evidence so overwhelming that even a first-year law student could win the case. But I didn't want legal action. Lawsuits were messy, public, and ultimately split the difference. I wanted something more complete. The gala was 10 days away now. My plan was taking shape, but I still needed more, something that would not just expose her theft, but fundamentally undermine her entire business model. Jessica Chen provided the key during her second week. Assigned to organize the company asset library, she discovered Vanessa's systematic approach to plagiarism. Not just my work, other designers too. Small enough modifications to avoid obvious detection, but clear enough patterns to prove intent when you knew what to look for. I spent an entire night creating a presentation, side-by-side comparisons, original sources, timestamps, a comprehensive document showing not isolated incidents, but a pattern of theft that formed the foundation of her entire business. Still, something was missing. The final piece? The thing that would turn exposure into destruction. It came from an unexpected source, a company-wide email about the upcoming gala. Vanessa was not just attending, she was receiving an Emerging Creative Force Award, complete with a showcase of her portfolio and a speech about creative integrity. The irony would be delicious if it wasn't so infuriating. The email included the judging committee members' names. One jumped out at me: Michael Terrence, creative director at Apex Agency, where I'd interned years ago. He'd always been kind to me, remembered my name at industry events, occasionally sent potential clients my way. He had no idea what Vanessa had done. No idea he was about to give an award to someone whose creative force was primarily theft. I stared at his name for a long time. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth. About consequences for actions. About making sure talent and work ethic mattered more than manipulation and theft. I drafted an email to Michael. Not as Jessica. Not even as the angry victim I'd become. Just as a professional with information he should have before making a very public mistake. Attached my evidence. All of it. With a simple request, please review at your convenience. No response necessary. I didn't hit send. Not yet. This was my nuclear option, and timing would be everything. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Jessica continued gaining Vanessa's trust, even being invited to contribute ideas for her acceptance speech, the irony nearly causing me physical pain. I finalized my gala preparations, including a dress I couldn't afford and a confidence I had to manufacture. 3 days before the event, I made my final decision. This wouldn't just be about exposing Vanessa, it would be about reclaiming what was mine. All of it. I carefully drafted emails to each of my former clients. Not accusations, not pleas for justice. Just simple, professional messages with attachments showing the original work I'd created for them, the timestamps proving it was mine, and Vanessa's subsequent modifications. No demands, no emotional appeals. Just facts, presented clearly and irrefutably. I scheduled these to send automatically during the gala, when Vanessa would be on stage accepting her award. The night before the event, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, barely recognizing myself. Dark circles under my eyes, hair I hadn't properly styled in weeks. The physical manifestation of betrayal and obsession. For one moment, doubt crept in. Was I becoming the villain in this story? Hadn't I spent weeks now plotting someone's downfall with the same methodical determination Vanessa had used to destroy me? Then I remembered the difference. I wasn't fabricating anything, wasn't stealing anything, was simply ensuring that truth had consequences. I took a deep breath, applied concealer to the worst of the dark circles, reminded myself that tomorrow wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, about restoration. At least, that's what I told myself as I laid out my gala outfit, checked my evidence portfolio one final time, and set my alarm. Tomorrow, Vanessa would discover what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, when you build your success on someone else's foundation. Tomorrow, everything would change. I fell asleep with a smile on my face for the first time in weeks. The morning of the gala, I woke up feeling like I was preparing for battle, not a networking event. In a way, I guess I was. My hands trembled slightly as I got ready, not from fear but from anticipation. The kind of electric energy that comes when months of planning are about to materialize into reality. I spent extra time on my appearance, hair styled to perfection, makeup that could withstand both a nuclear apocalypse and my potential emotional breakdown. The black dress I'd splurged on, classic enough to be appropriate, striking enough to be remembered. This wasn't vanity, this was armor. 3 hours before the event, I sent Michael Terrence my carefully crafted email with all the evidence attached. Not too early that he could contact Vanessa, not too late that he wouldn't have time to review it. Just enough time for the information to sink in, for doubt to take root before he saw her in person. Strategic timing was becoming my superpower. I arrived at the venue exactly 37 minutes after the doors opened. Not so early that I'd be standing awkwardly alone, not so late that my entrance would draw attention. Just another professional at an industry event. Nothing to see here. Except I wasn't just another professional. I was a ghost, haunting the celebration of my own murder. The venue was predictably pretentious, all exposed brick and industrial lighting, the kind of place that served microgreens on everything and charged $18 for a glass of mediocre wine. I paid for said wine anyway. Some occasions require liquid courage. I spotted Vanessa within minutes. Hard to miss her, really. Center of attention in a group of admirers, laughing that practiced laugh she reserved for professional settings. Wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, looking every inch the successful entrepreneur about to receive an award. For one brief, irrational moment, I considered abandoning my plan, walking out, starting over somewhere else, being the bigger person. Then she turned slightly, and I could see what was displayed on the tablet she was showing her adoring audience. My Belmore campaign, the one that had won awards, the one she was now taking credit for. Rage crystallized into resolve. I took another sip of overpriced wine and checked the time. The scheduled emails to her clients would send in exactly 73 minutes, right when she would be on stage. I moved through the crowd carefully, not approaching Vanessa but making sure I was visible on the periphery. Wanted her to see me, to wonder why I was there, to feel that first twinge of unease. It worked. Her eyes met mine across the room, widened slightly in surprise, then narrowed in what might have been concern. I raised my glass in a mock toast and smiled. Not angrily, not sadly, just knowingly. She looked away quickly, said something to her group, and moved toward the bar. Running away already? The night was just getting started. I circulated, making small talk with people who had no idea of the drama unfolding. Introduced myself to strangers with my actual name and credentials, dropping casual references to projects I'd created, including some Vanessa now claimed as hers. Planting seeds of confusion that would bloom into questions after tonight. 40 minutes before the award presentation, I noticed Michael Terrence enter the room. His eyes immediately scanned the crowd, landing on Vanessa, then continuing until they found me. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. He'd read my email. He knew. My heart pounded as he made his way over to me, stopping to greet people but clearly on a direct path. When he reached me, his expression was professionally neutral, but his eyes were grave. "I received your email," he said quietly. "I assumed you might want to verify the information," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I have the original files with me if you'd like to see them." He glanced toward Vanessa, who was now watching us with poorly concealed alarm. "That won't be necessary," he said. "The metadata and timestamps were comprehensive. The committee is discussing options. The program is already printed, but—" He trailed off, the implications clear. I nodded, maintaining my composure, though internally I was doing cartwheels. "I understand this puts you in a difficult position. That wasn't my intention. I just thought you should know before we gave an industry award to someone who built their portfolio by stealing others' work." He shook his head slightly. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention." He moved away just as Vanessa decided she couldn't stand watching us talk any longer. She approached, champagne flute in hand, smile fixed firmly in place. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, voice sweet but eyes calculating. "It's been so long." "Has it? Feels like you've been with me every day," I replied, enjoying the momentary confusion on her face. "Congratulations on your award. The emerging creative force, right? Very impressive." Her smile faltered just slightly. "Thank you. I'm honored the committee recognized my work." "Your work," I repeated, emphasizing the word just enough. "That's what matters most, isn't it? That everyone recognizes exactly whose work they're seeing." The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. She glanced toward Michael, who was now in serious conversation with two other committee members. "What did you say to him?" she asked, voice dropping all pretense of friendliness. I sipped my wine. "Nothing that isn't true, nothing I can't prove." Her eyes darted around the room, assessing, calculating. "You're just jealous," she said finally. "You couldn't handle that I succeeded where you failed. It's pathetic, really." I laughed then, a genuine laugh that turned a few heads nearby. "That's what you still think this is about? Competition?" I shook my head. "Vanessa, I don't care about competing with you. I never did. But passing off someone else's work as your own? That's not competition. That's fraud." Her hand tightened around her glass. "You can't prove anything." "Already have," I replied calmly. "To Michael, to the committee, and in about—" I checked my watch. 22 minutes, to all of your clients." The look on her face was everything I'd imagined during those dark nights planning this moment. Fear, rage, disbelief, all fighting for dominance. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Wouldn't I?" I stepped closer, my voice for her ears only. "You stole my clients, my designs, my reputation. Did you really think I'd just disappear? That I wouldn't fight back? You taught me an important lesson, Vanessa. Business is business." The announcement for everyone to take their seats interrupted whatever she was about to say. The award presentation was about to begin. I smiled. "Better find your seat. I think they're expecting you on stage soon." As I turned to walk away, she grabbed my arm. "Wait! Ladies and gentlemen!" The MC's voice boomed through the sound system. "Welcome to the annual Small Business Association Gala and Awards Ceremony." Applause filled the room. Vanessa's fingers dug into my arm. "What do you want?" she hissed. "Money? A job? What will make this go away?" I gently removed her hand. "I don't want anything from you, Vanessa. I just want the truth to come out." "Please take your seats," the MC continued. "We have an exciting program ahead." I walked away, finding my seat near the back, leaving Vanessa standing there, the perfect red dress suddenly looking like a target on her back. The first award presentations began. I checked my watch and my phone, confirming the scheduled emails were set to send in 16 minutes, right when Vanessa should be accepting her award. Except Michael was now on stage, whispering something to the MC, who nodded and shuffled some papers. Something was happening. Something not in my script. I sat straighter, watching as Vanessa took her assigned seat near the stage, her posture rigid with tension. She kept glancing at her phone, then at me, then at the stage. The MC cleared his throat. "We have a slight change to our program this evening." The MC cleared his throat. "We have a slight change to our program this evening." My pulse quickened as the room quieted. This wasn't part of my plan. Whatever was about to happen wasn't something I'd orchestrated. "The Emerging Creative Force Award will be presented later in the evening," he continued smoothly. "We'll now move to the Community Impact Award." I watched Vanessa's shoulders sag slightly with relief. She thought she'd dodged the bullet. Poor thing didn't realize the gun was still aimed right at her. The Community Impact presentation droned on while I kept one eye on my watch. 12 minutes until the emails went out. Vanessa kept checking her phone nervously, then glancing back at me. The fear in her eyes was like a tiny, perfect dessert I wanted to savor slowly. 8 minutes. Vanessa excused herself from her table and headed toward the hallway, phone clutched in her hand. Running away? Or trying to stop what was coming? Either way, it was too late. The emails were scheduled through a service she couldn't access, with copies automatically forwarding to me as confirmation. I remained in my seat, outwardly calm while my insides twisted with anticipation. This moment, watching someone realize they're about to lose everything, should have felt victorious. Instead, it felt strangely hollow, like watching a car crash in slow motion. Necessary but brutal. The Community Impact winner was finishing his speech when Vanessa returned, her face noticeably paler. She whispered urgently to Michael Terrence, who shook his head firmly and moved away from her. 3 minutes. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Now back hallway. V." I almost laughed out loud. Now she wanted to talk? After months of stealing my work, destroying my business, and pretending I didn't exist? I didn't respond. Didn't move. Just watched as she became increasingly frantic, trying to get Michael's attention again while periodically looking at me with what was evolving from fear into panic. 1 minute. The MC returned to the microphone. "And now, we have an announcement regarding the Emerging Creative Force Award." My phone vibrated again with another text. "Please, I'll do anything. Too little, too late." Michael Terrence stepped up to the microphone, his expression professionally grave. "After careful consideration and recent information, the committee has decided to postpone this particular award pending further review of the nominated portfolios." A murmur ran through the crowd. This kind of thing didn't happen at these events. Awards weren't postponed last minute without serious cause. And then it began. My phone lit up with forwarded confirmations. One after another after another. The emails had gone out to every client Vanessa had stolen from me, each containing irrefutable proof that the work they were paying her for had actually been created by me. I watched Vanessa's face as her own phone exploded with notifications. Watched as she opened one email, then another, her face draining of all color. Watched as she looked up at me with the expression of pure, unfiltered horror. I raised my wine glass in a small toast. Game over. What happened next wasn't in my careful plans. Vanessa stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair with a crash that silenced the room. All eyes turned to her as she stormed toward me, public pretense abandoned. "What have you done?" she hissed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. I remained seated, voice calm. "I simply sent some emails, Vanessa, showing your clients the original work you stole from me, with timestamps and metadata and proof." People at nearby tables were openly staring now, phones coming out to record what was quickly becoming the most interesting part of the evening. "You've ruined everything!" Her voice rose shrill with panic. "No, Vanessa," I replied, still eerily calm. "You did that yourself when you decided to build your business on theft and lies. It wasn't like that. I helped you." "Helped me?" Now I stood, my composure finally cracking. "You accessed my accounts, impersonated me to my clients, stole my work, and systematically destroyed my business. Then you repackaged my designs as your own and charged premium rates for them. That's not help. That's fraud." The murmurs around us grew louder. Someone from Vanessa's table approached, trying to defuse the situation, but she shoved them away. "You wouldn't have succeeded anyway," she spat. "You were always going to fail. I just accelerated the inevitable." I laughed then, a sound so genuine it surprised even me. And yet here we are, me exposing you with nothing but the truth. You about to lose everything because you couldn't create something original. As if on cue, her phone rang. She glanced at it, face contorting as she saw the caller ID, one of her biggest clients, no doubt reading my email. The event organizers were moving toward us now, security not far behind. This very public meltdown was definitely not on the gala program. "This isn't over," Vanessa said, but her voice had lost its conviction. "Actually, it is." I gathered my purse, suddenly ready to leave. I'd seen what I came to see. Check your company email when you get home. Jessica Chen regrets to inform you that she's resigning, effective immediately. Her eyes widened as the final piece clicked into place. "You learned from the best," I finished for her. "Goodbye, Vanessa." I walked away as security reached her, as her phone continued to light up with messages from panicking clients, as whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and for the first time in months I took a deep, clean breath. It was over. Not with the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined during those dark planning nights, but with something more satisfying. Watching Vanessa's carefully constructed facade crumble in real time, in front of the very industry she'd been so desperate to impress. My phone buzzed continuously as I walked to my car. Confirmation emails, yes, but also messages from the clients I'd contacted. Questions, confusion, requests for meetings, people wanting to hear my side directly. One email in particular made me stop in my tracks. From Michael Terrence. That was quite a show. "I've never seen anything like it in 20 years in this industry. When you're ready to talk about your next steps, I'd like to offer you a position at Apex. Anyone who can create the original Belmore campaign and orchestrate tonight's reckoning clearly has talents we could use. Call me Monday." I leaned against my car, suddenly dizzy with the realization that this wasn't just an ending. It was also potentially a beginning. Another message came through. My sister. "How's the big project going?" I laughed out loud in the parking lot, probably looking like a madwoman to anyone passing by. If she only knew. I typed back, "Project successfully completed. I'll tell you everything at Mom's birthday." And I would. Every delicious detail of how I'd dismantled someone else's fraudulent success by simply exposing the truth. I started my car, glancing back at the venue one last time. Through the windows, I could see people still gathered, talking animatedly, no doubt discussing the scandal that had just exploded in their midst. Somewhere in there, Vanessa was dealing with the consequences of her actions. Finally, as I pulled away, I felt something unexpected, not just satisfaction or vindication, but a strange sense of lightness. Like removing a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it wasn't actually part of me. Revenge, it turns out, doesn't solve everything. It doesn't erase the betrayal or heal all wounds. But watching someone face the consequences of their actions, that has its own kind of restorative power. And this was just the beginning of Vanessa's consequences. By morning, the industry would be buzzing with the story. By next week, her remaining clients would be running for the exits. By next month, those fancy office lights might be going dark. Meanwhile, I had a job offer to consider, clients potentially returning, a future that suddenly had possibilities again. I smiled as I drove home, already mentally drafting how I'd tell this story to my sister. How my friend had sabotaged my business, and how I'd become the professional she'd only pretended to be. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive through the front door with official paperwork. Sometimes it slips in through email, wearing a black dress and carrying irrefutable evidence. And sometimes it feels really fucking good. 3 months after the gala, I sat in my new office at Apex Agency, staring at the email that had just arrived in my inbox. The subject line read simply, "Bankruptcy filing, Vanessa Mercer Design Studio." I should have felt pure triumph. This was, after all, exactly what I'd wanted. Complete and total professional annihilation. The kind of justice that doesn't just sting but obliterates. Instead, I felt something more complex. Satisfaction, yes, I'm not a saint, but also a strange sense of closure, like the final page of a book I could now put back on the shelf. The weeks following the gala had been a whirlwind. The story spread through the industry like wildfire, with increasingly dramatic versions circulating. My favorite involved me dumping red wine on Vanessa's dress while security dragged her out screaming. Complete fiction, but I didn't bother correcting it. The truth was damning enough. 5 of my former clients contacted me within 48 hours, apologizing for believing Vanessa's lies and asking if I'd consider working with them again. 3 more followed the next week. Michael Terrence's job offer at Apex came with a salary that made my previous income look like pocket change, and an industry publication wanted to interview me about ethics in design and the importance of creative attribution. Meanwhile, Vanessa's carefully constructed house of cards collapsed spectacularly. Clients terminated contracts. Her junior designers quit publicly, distancing themselves from the scandal. The downtown office space was vacated practically overnight. She tried damage control, of course. Released a statement claiming misunderstandings and oversights in crediting original work. Offered discounts to retain clients. Even attempted to contact me directly about a mutually beneficial resolution. I didn't respond. Some messes can't be cleaned up. I took a sip of my morning coffee, the fancy kind I could now afford, and clicked open the bankruptcy notice. The business assets would be liquidated. Outstanding client contracts terminated. Her professional reputation effectively cremated. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Have you seen the news? Your old friend filed for bankruptcy. Cosmic justice is real." I smiled. My family had been appropriately horrified when I finally told them the full story at my mom's birthday dinner. My sister had wanted to create fake social media accounts to publicly shame Vanessa. My mother, ever practical, had simply asked if I needed a loan. Neither could quite understand why I'd chosen such an elaborate revenge rather than pursuing legal action. But legal action would have been so ordinary. A standard cease and desist, some negotiated settlement, maybe my name added to some designs with an asterisk. That wasn't enough. I needed Vanessa to experience exactly what she'd done to me, watching helplessly as everything she'd built crumbled to dust. I texted back, "Just saw it. Karma keeps receipts." My new office phone rang. My assistant, yes, I had an assistant now, informed me that my 10 a.m. client had arrived early. The Belmore account, now officially back with me as lead designer after they'd fired Vanessa and issued a very public apology for the confusion about the campaign's creator. I closed the bankruptcy email and stood up, smoothing down my designer dress. No more fast fashion for me. Took one last look at the view from my 14th floor office, a view I'd once dreamed about during ramen dinners in my sad apartment. All of this, built from the ashes of betrayal. As I walked to the conference room, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I almost ignored it until I noticed the first line of the text preview. "It's Vanessa. I know you won't believe this, but I'm sorry. Everything's gone. My apartment, my car, my reputation. I'm moving back in with my parents next week. I just wanted to say..." I stopped reading and deleted the message without opening it. Some apologies come too late to matter. The conference room doors opened, and I switched instantly into professional mode. Confident smile, firm handshake, easy charm. The Belmore team greeted me like an old friend. Their marketing director mentioned they were increasing the campaign budget by 30%. The CEO made a joke about making sure I got proper credit this time. I laughed at all the right moments while thinking how quickly fortunes can change. 6 months ago, I was nearly homeless, plotting revenge from an apartment that smelled like defeat. Now I was being courted by clients who considered working with me a privilege. The meeting went brilliantly. As I walked the Belmore team out, I noticed a familiar face in our reception area, another former client who had initially believed Vanessa's lies about me. They looked uncomfortable seeing me, quickly averting their eyes. My assistant whispered, "They've been trying to get an appointment with you for 2 weeks. Said it's urgent." I smiled. "Tell them I'm booked solid for the next month, but they're welcome to try again." Petty? Perhaps. But I'd earned the right to be selective. Back in my office, I found myself opening the bankruptcy notice again, studying it like a trophy. Vanessa Mercer Design Studio, LLC. Established 14 months ago. Built on theft and lies. Now officially defunct. My phone calendar reminded me I had dinner plans with my sister. She'd been insisting on celebrating my victory properly since the bankruptcy news broke. Had already reserved a table at that absurdly expensive restaurant where the waiters practically genuflect when they bring you water. I texted her, "See you at 7. I'm buying." Because that was the thing about revenge. It wasn't just about watching someone else fail. It was about succeeding so dramatically that their failure became merely a footnote in your story. As I packed up for the day, a new email arrived from an industry newsletter I subscribed to. The headline caught my eye: "Rising from the Ashes, How Designer, My Name Reclaimed Her Work and Built an Empire." Empire. I liked the sound of that. The article included a professional photo of me in my new office, looking confident and successful. The final paragraph quoted me: "Success isn't just about talent, it's about integrity, creating original work that speaks for itself. No shortcuts." I hadn't actually said that. The writer had apparently paraphrased something from our interview, but I decided I liked that version of me. The principled professional who stood her ground and emerged victorious. Much better than vengeful mastermind who meticulously orchestrated her friend's professional destruction, though that version had its charms too. As I left the office that evening, I realized something that made me laugh out loud in the elevator. In her desperate attempt to destroy me, Vanessa had actually given me the greatest gift possible: the motivation to become unstoppable. My friend sabotaged my business, and now I really was a millionaire while she was bankrupt. Life has a poetry to it sometimes. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. I stepped out into the evening, head high, walking like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Because I did. 1 year after Vanessa's bankruptcy filing, I received an invitation that made me laugh so hard my assistant came running into my office. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, looking concerned. I turned my monitor so she could see the email. "The Small Business Association Gala. They want me to present the Emerging Creative Force Award this year." The irony was delicious. The same event where I'd orchestrated Vanessa's downfall now wanted me as a presenter. Life really does come full circle sometimes. "Are you going to do it?" my assistant asked. "Absolutely," I replied. "I'll even wear the same black dress." The year since Vanessa's bankruptcy had transformed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark days planning revenge. Apex had promoted me to creative director after the Belmore campaign won national recognition. I'd bought a condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and views that made my old apartment seem like a sad memory from someone else's life. And most importantly, I'd launched a side venture, a mentorship program for young designers focused on business ethics and protecting their intellectual property. That last part wasn't just good karma, it was practical damage control. The story of how I'd taken down Vanessa had become something of an industry legend, morphing with each retelling. In some versions, I was a vigilante hero. In others, a calculating villain who'd gone too far. I preferred to control the narrative by channeling it into something constructive. The morning of the gala, I found myself standing in my new walk-in closet, staring at the black dress I'd worn last year. It still fit perfectly, but I felt like a different person now, someone who didn't need revenge to define her. I hung it back up and chose something else. Something in deep emerald green that spoke of success rather than vengeance. Some ghosts aren't worth revisiting. The event itself was surreal, being on the other side of that stage, presenting an award rather than plotting someone's destruction. I scanned the crowd during my introduction speech, half expecting to see Vanessa lurking in some corner, but of course she wasn't there. According to industry gossip, she'd left the state entirely, started working retail in some small town where nobody knew her story. I couldn't decide if that was tragic or fitting. After the ceremony, Michael Terrence found me at the bar, looking pleased with himself. "Quite a different experience from last year," he said, ordering us both drinks. "I still tell people about that night. Never seen anything like it." I smiled. "Let's hope you never do again." "Oh, I don't know," he replied, handing me a glass of champagne. It was rather refreshing seeing someone face actual consequences in this industry. Usually people just fail upward. We clinked glasses, and I felt a strange wave of gratitude toward Vanessa. Without her betrayal, I wouldn't be standing here now. Wouldn't have this career, this reputation, this life. "Speaking of consequences," Michael continued, lowering his voice, "have you seen the email going around?" "About Jason Forrester?" I hadn't. Jason was a creative director at a rival agency, known for taking credit for his team's work. Apparently, 3 of his junior designers compiled evidence that he's been passing off their concepts as his own for years. They sent it to the board yesterday. Michael raised an eyebrow. "People are calling it pulling a Vanessa. You've started a trend." I nearly choked on my champagne. That's not exactly the legacy I was aiming for. "No? Then what were you aiming for?" The question caught me off guard. What had been my goal beyond revenge? Beyond proving I wasn't someone who could be discarded and forgotten? Justice, I guess, I said finally. And maybe proving that talent matters more than manipulation. Michael studied me for a moment. Well, you certainly proved that, and perhaps established a new form of accountability in an industry that sorely needed it. As I drove home that night, his words stayed with me. A new form of accountability. I liked that framing better than elaborate revenge scheme. My phone rang through the car speakers, my sister, right on cue. "How was it?" she asked. "Any dramatic confrontations this year?" I laughed. "Thankfully, no. Just a normal industry event where I presented an award and didn't orchestrate anyone's professional demise." "Boring," she declared. "But I'm proud of you anyway." We chatted about normal things. Her job, our parents, the vacation we were planning, regular life stuff that had seemed impossible during those months consumed by rage and plotting. After we hung up, I found myself taking a detour. Driving past the building where Vanessa's studio had been, the space was now occupied by a boutique marketing agency. No trace remained of what had happened there. I felt nothing looking at it. No residual anger. No smug satisfaction. Just acknowledgement of a chapter closed. Back home, I kicked off my heels and poured a glass of wine, settling in on my balcony with its panoramic city view. My phone buzzed with an email notification. A former client of Vanessa's, one who'd never worked with me, asking if I'd consider taking on their new campaign. "We've heard great things about your work ethic and integrity," they wrote. Integrity, there was that word again. The one the industry now associated with me, ironically because of actions some might consider deeply unethical. I sipped my wine and thought about legacies, about how stories get told and retold until they become something different. In the current version circulating through the design world, I was the wronged creative who'd brilliantly exposed a fraud. The uncomfortable details, the obsessive planning, the fake identity, the public humiliation, had been smoothed away, leaving a cleaner narrative everyone could feel good about sharing. Was that version true? Partially. Was it the whole truth? Not even close. But maybe that's how all stories of success work. The messy parts get edited out, leaving only the triumphant arc. From struggling designer to millionaire creative director. From betrayed friend to industry icon. The following morning, I did something I'd been considering for months. I deleted all my files related to Vanessa, the evidence folder, the screenshots, the elaborate documentation of her downfall. Not because I regretted what I'd done. I didn't. She'd earned every consequence she received. I deleted them because I no longer needed physical reminders of that victory. Because success isn't just about defeating your enemies, it's about becoming something greater than the person who needed revenge in the first place. My friend had sabotaged my business, and now I was a millionaire while she was bankrupt. That part of the story was complete. But my story? That was still being written, and the next chapters had nothing to do with Vanessa at all. They were all about what I would build next. 5 years to the day after Vanessa's bankruptcy filing, I found myself in a position that would have seemed impossible during those dark nights plotting revenge in my sad apartment, being interviewed for Entrepreneur magazine's 40 Under 40 issue. The photographer directed me to look thoughtfully out my office window, which now showcased a view from the 30th floor of a downtown high-rise. My design agency, yes, my own agency now, not just a position at someone else's, occupied the entire floor. 63 employees, a client waiting list, revenue that made my bank's wealth management division call me regularly. "Can you tell us about your journey?" the interviewer asked once the photographer finished. The turning point that led to all this? I smiled, considering how to answer. The public version of my story had evolved over the years into something almost mythic, the talented designer who exposed industry fraud and rose from the ashes of betrayal to build an empire. The messier details had faded with time, smoothed away like rough edges on a stone. I learned that sometimes your biggest setbacks create your greatest opportunities, I said, giving her the sanitized version she expected. And that integrity in this industry isn't optional. The interview continued with questions about my creative process, leadership philosophy, and future plans. Nothing about Vanessa specifically. Her name had become almost taboo in industry circles, a cautionary tale whispered to newcomers about the consequences of theft and fraud. After the journalist left, I found myself alone in my office, thinking about how completely my life had transformed. From the verge of bankruptcy to the cover of Entrepreneur. From plotting revenge to building a creative empire known for its ethical standards and transparency policies. My assistant knocked gently on my door. "Sorry to interrupt, but your sister's on line 1, says it's important." I picked up the phone, immediately concerned. My sister rarely called during work hours unless something was wrong. "Everything okay?" I asked. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and barely suppressed glee. "Guess who I just saw working at the Starbucks in Mom and Dad's neighborhood?" My heart did a strange little stutter step. "No way." "Yes way," my sister continued. "Vanessa fucking Mercer, wearing a green apron and calling out orders like she never stole your entire business." I nearly choked on my latte. I sat back in my chair, unexpected emotions washing over me. 5 years without seeing or hearing from Vanessa directly. 5 years of building something new, while the story of her downfall faded into industry lore. "Did she recognize you?" I asked. "Oh, she recognized me all right, turned white as paper." I smiled, asked how she was doing, and left a 20 in the tip jar, told her to have a blessed day. I couldn't help laughing. My sister's petty revenge was perfectly calibrated, acknowledging Vanessa's fall without seeming to care about it at all. What did she say? That's the best part. She just mumbled, "Thank you," and couldn't even make eye contact. 5 years ago, she was stealing your designs and clients. Now she's making pumpkin spice lattes for suburban moms. After we hung up, I found myself opening my laptop and typing Vanessa's name into the search bar, something I hadn't done in years. Not much came up. A LinkedIn profile that hadn't been updated since before the bankruptcy. An old industry directory listing. Nothing recent. She had effectively disappeared from the design world, exactly as I'd intended when I'd orchestrated her downfall. I should have felt complete satisfaction. This was, after all, the final confirmation of my victory, Vanessa reduced to service jobs while I graced magazine covers. The perfect ending to our story. Instead, I felt something unexpected, a quiet sense of closure. Not gloating triumph, not lingering resentment, just completion. Like closing a book you've read so many times the spine is worn, finally ready to put it back on the shelf for good. I closed the search window and opened my calendar instead. My day was packed with client meetings, creative reviews, and a mentoring session with design students from my old college. A life so full and rich that dwelling on old betrayals seemed like a waste of precious time. That evening, as I left the office, my phone buzzed with a notification from my banking app. The final payment had processed on my parents' mortgage, a surprise gift I'd arranged months ago. Next week, I'd be flying them to Italy for the vacation they'd always dreamed about but could never afford. Success, I'd discovered, was sweetest when shared. In my car, I found myself taking another detour, driving past that sad apartment where I'd once plotted elaborate revenge while eating ramen noodles. The building looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier. Like artifacts from a previous life often do. I thought about the person I'd been then, desperate, furious, singularly focused on making someone pay for what they'd done to me. That rage had been a powerful fuel. It had propelled me out of victimhood and into action. But I couldn't have kept burning it forever without consuming myself in the process. The real victory wasn't Vanessa making coffee for minimum wage. It wasn't even my name on magazine covers or my agency's impressive client list. It was the fact that while she remained frozen in that moment of public disgrace, defined forever by her worst decisions, I had evolved into someone new, someone stronger, someone whose success existed independently of her destruction. My phone rang, the wealth management advisor I'd mentioned earlier, probably with yet another investment opportunity. I answered, confirmed a meeting for the following week, and continued driving toward my waterfront condo. As I pulled into my reserved parking space, I noticed the sunset reflecting off the bay in shades of gold and crimson. 5 years ago, I'd been too consumed with revenge to notice sunsets, too focused on Vanessa's destruction to appreciate simple beauty. I took a photo and texted it to my sister with the caption, "Better than the view from a Starbucks counter, don't you think?" Her response came immediately. "You won so hard it's almost not even funny." Almost. But that was the thing about winning this thoroughly. It had stopped being about Vanessa a long time ago. Her downfall had been necessary, yes, deserved, absolutely. But it was merely the catalyst for something far more significant, discovering what I was truly capable of building. My friend had sabotaged my business, and yes, now I was a millionaire while she was bankrupt. But the most valuable thing I'd gained wasn't the money, or even the professional vindication. It was the unshakable knowledge that I could lose everything, face the worst kind of betrayal, and still rise again, stronger, smarter, and spectacularly successful. Some people never recover from betrayal. They remain stuck in that moment of injury, defining themselves by what was done to them. I'd chosen a different path. I'd used that betrayal as a foundation to build something so magnificent that my revenge became just a footnote in my success story. And that, as it turns out, is the sweetest revenge of all. 10 years to the day after Vanessa's bankruptcy filing, I found myself back in the same ballroom where I'd orchestrated her downfall. Only this time, I wasn't an attendee or even a presenter. I was the keynote speaker. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood backstage waiting to be introduced. A decade ago, I'd entered this room with revenge burning in my veins. Now I was here to talk about innovation through integrity, building creative businesses that last. My design agency had grown beyond anything I could have imagined during those dark days plotting revenge. 300 employees across 4 offices, a client list that read like the Fortune 500, features in every major business publication. The success that Vanessa had tried to steal from me had multiplied exponentially, like the universe was making up for lost time. And now, please welcome our keynote speaker. I walked onto the stage to applause that felt surreal. 10 years ago, I'd been nearly broke, watching my former best friend accept undeserved recognition. Now all these people were here to listen to my wisdom. Life has a beautiful sense of symmetry sometimes. My speech went well, the usual mix of inspiration and practical advice, with carefully scrubbed references to my professional setback that had become part of my origin story. I never mentioned Vanessa by name in these talks, didn't need to. Most people in the industry knew the outline, if not the details. Afterward, during the networking reception, a young designer approached me, clutching a portfolio and looking nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you," she began, "but your mentorship program changed my life. I applied last year after someone stole my work, and the legal advice your foundation provided saved my career." The mentorship program had been my way of transforming my revenge story into something constructive. Every year, we selected 50 young designers for career guidance, legal protection, and sometimes seed funding, my way of ensuring fewer people experienced what I had. "I'm so glad we could help," I told her sincerely. "What happened with your situation?" "We got a cease and desist issued and they removed my designs from their portfolio," she explained. "Without your lawyers, I couldn't have afforded to fight back." I smiled, feeling that particular satisfaction that comes from preventing someone else's suffering. "That's exactly why we created the program." As she walked away, I caught a glimpse of someone across the room that made my heart stutter. A profile that, even after a decade, I would recognize anywhere. Vanessa. She looked different, older of course, but also somehow diminished. The confident posture was gone. The designer clothes replaced by something serviceable but unmemorable. She was speaking with an older man I didn't recognize, nodding attentively. My first instinct was to leave immediately. Why was she even here? This was my territory now. Then curiosity won out. 10 years without a single encounter. 10 years of building my empire while she did whatever she'd been doing. I approached slowly, not wanting to create a scene. As I got closer, I realized she was wearing a name badge from a marketing agency I'd never heard of. She saw me when I was about 15 feet away. Her eyes widened, her sentence to the older man trailing off mid-word. For a moment, we just looked at each other across a decade of history. I nodded politely and kept walking, as if she were merely another industry acquaintance, rather than the person who'd nearly destroyed my life and inadvertently launched my success. "Wait," her voice came from behind me. Not demanding, almost hesitant. I turned, maintaining a calm expression that had taken years of practice to perfect. "Yes?" She looked different up close. The confident, calculating woman who had betrayed me was gone, replaced by someone with worried eyes and premature lines around her mouth. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said quietly. "I can leave." "That's not necessary," I replied, supremely aware of curious eyes watching us. This unexpected reunion would be industry gossip by morning. "It's a public event." An awkward silence stretched between us. "What do you say to the person who betrayed you so completely that it altered the course of your life?" "I saw your speech," she finally offered. "It was really good." "Thank you." Another pause. She twisted her hands nervously. I work for MKG Marketing now, junior position, but it's something. Design adjacent at least. I nodded, not particularly interested in her career rehabilitation. Whatever sympathy I might have felt was tempered by the memory of those dark months after her betrayal. I'm glad, I said, because social niceties required some response. She took a deep breath. I've wanted to apologize to you for years. What I did was... There's no excuse. I was jealous and desperate and made horrible choices. 10 years ago, I would have killed for this admission. 5 years ago, I would have savored it. Now it felt strangely unnecessary. Why did you do it? I asked, the question that had lingered despite all my success. We were friends. Best friends. She looked down. Because I could see you were going to succeed, and I wasn't. Your talent was real. Mine was adequate. I convinced myself I deserved your clients more because I wanted it more. It was delusional and unforgivable. The raw honesty surprised me. I'd always imagined her justifying her actions, even to herself. You're right, I said. It was unforgivable. She nodded, accepting this. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, and I live with that knowledge every day. Something shifted inside me then. Not forgiveness exactly, but a release. Like putting down a heavy bag I hadn't realized I was still carrying. Your downfall was the best thing that ever happened to me, I said, surprising myself with the admission. It forced me to become someone stronger than I ever thought possible. A small, sad smile crossed her face. I know. I've watched your success from afar. Not in a creepy way, she added quickly. You're kind of unavoidable in the industry. And you? I asked, not out of genuine interest but because the conversation demanded it. Rock bottom, then slow rebuilding. Therapy. A lot of therapy. Started over completely. It took 6 years before anyone in the industry would hire me, even for entry-level work. She shrugged. Actions have consequences. The person I'd been a decade ago would have gloried in this confirmation of her struggle. The person I was now felt only a detached sense of justice served. I should get back, I said, gesturing vaguely to the crowd. It was interesting seeing you, Vanessa. She nodded. Congratulations on everything you've built. It's truly impressive. As I walked away, I realized something profound. I felt nothing. No lingering rage. No smug satisfaction. No need to see her suffer further. The Vanessa chapter of my life had fully closed, leaving not even an echo of the pain that had once consumed me. Later that night, back in my penthouse overlooking the city, I poured a glass of ridiculously expensive whiskey, because when you can afford the best, why not, and scrolled through photos from the event on my phone. My keynote speech. Networking with industry leaders. The announcement of my agency's latest acquisition. No pictures of Vanessa. Our brief encounter already fading like an insignificant footnote. My phone rang, my sister, with her psychic timing. How was the speech? She asked. Good. Standing ovation. The usual, I replied with mock casualness that made her laugh. Of course they gave you a standing ovation. You're only the most successful design entrepreneur in the country. She paused. You'll never guess what Mom told me today. What? Vanessa's mother ran into her at the grocery store. Apparently Vanessa's going to be at that industry event you're speaking at. Mom was worried it might upset you. I smiled. Actually, I saw her there. What? My sister's voice rose dramatically. Why didn't you lead with that? What happened? Did she try to apologize? Did security remove her? Details, please. Nothing dramatic happened, I said. We had a brief civil conversation. She's working at some small marketing agency now. Looks completely different. Older. Sadder. And? How did it feel seeing her again? Satisfying? I considered the question carefully. It felt irrelevant. Like running into someone from high school you barely remember. My sister was silent for a moment. Wow, that's actually the best revenge of all, isn't it? That she just doesn't matter anymore. Exactly. After we hung up, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, taking in the glittering city below. My empire built from the ashes of betrayal. The truth was, Vanessa had stopped mattering years ago. My success wasn't about her downfall anymore, hadn't been for a very long time. What began as revenge had evolved into something far more meaningful, a life built on my own terms, a business that reflected my values, and the knowledge that I could survive anything. My friend had sabotaged my business, and yes, now I was a millionaire while she struggled to rebuild a modest career. But the real victory wasn't financial or even professional. It was the person I'd become along the way. Someone stronger, wiser, and ultimately free from the weight of betrayal. Some people stay trapped in cycles of vengeance, defining themselves by old injuries. I'd chosen to build something so magnificent that my revenge became merely the first chapter in a much larger story. And as stories go, mine was just getting interesting.